Oh boy.
We gotta talk about it. Okay? This bride's commentary on her wedding caterer has gone absolutely viral on TikTok, and we need to have a moment to talk about it. Because here's the deal. Obviously, when we see a caption like this, we automatically want to side with the couple and go like, clearly the caterer has ruined this person's wedding day, which, to be fair, may or may not be the case. However, I am one that's usually pretty happy to sprinkle a little salt on the situation to see if we perhaps might be missing a little bit of context here. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Jamie Wolfer. I'm your online wedding planner. If you are planning a wedding, you should stop everything you're doing right now and jump down there and subscribe, okay? Because I'm here to help you plan easy and stress less. You deserve a stress-free wedding day. I like this for a bride, okay? This is B. I think it's short for Banana. And a couple weeks ago, by the time I'm posting this video, she posted this. POV, your wedding day was nearly ruined by a popular Chicagoland caterer, and they told you they won't speak to you until you remove your negative review about them. And then proceeded to drop a whole series of videos that we are going to be unpacking today. So without further ado, let's just jump right on into it. Here's what we're going to do, okay? We're going to figure out if the caterer is the one to blame for all the situations that she brings up, and how I would handle it if I was a wedding planner. So without further ado, let's just jump right on into it. This says part 2, but truly it is part 1 because she hasn't really explained anything yet other than the little ditty that she just put out. So it has 1.2 million views. And honestly, I like doing these kinds of videos because it provides a little bit of context. Like, obviously, in a situation like this, we are not going to be getting the whole story because we're only hearing from the bride. So as a wedding professional, is there any insight that I could be offering to this? Anywho else, part 1, 2, situation. How my wedding caterer ruined parts of my big day. First of all, can I just say I completely appreciate the fact that she didn't say ruined her entire wedding day. That's a girl with her head on straight, okay?
I left a negative review about my wedding caterer because they ruined parts of my wedding day, and now the owner is refusing to speak with me until I delete that review. Let's talk about it. Quick context before we dive in. My husband and I got married on September 20th, 2025, and while most of our vendors were honestly incredible, the catering company that we wound up going with that's based in Elgin single-handedly ruined parts of our day. They caused our ceremony to start late, ignored written instructions, disrespected my coordinator, destroyed our wedding cake. Instead of taking accountability, the owner seriously tried to persuade me into deleting my review before he even spoke with me.
That's not how reviews work, Boo Bear. Already I'm a little bit on Team Bride because if the owner is refusing to speak with a client or a past client, especially a recent past client, because of the review that they left, like I won't even speak to you or consider offering you a refund until you remove that review. That's not how this system works, bud.
So let's get into the key players. This is Greg. I don't know how to say his last name, but he's the...
I will say that the second you start showing photos and full names, you lose a little bit of credibility for me. In fact, I'm going to see if there's any way that I can like blur over this. The doxing that happens, you know what I mean? Like I'm not a fan. This is where the internet gets a little crazy. Speaking of which, regardless of the results of this video, do not go leave a review for anybody because you didn't work with them. Okay.
Owner of Catering Made Simple. That's who we hired. This dude was at my wedding all night long. He did not intervene one time, even after he saw things going wrong.
That's bad. That's not... I'm trying to help you, man, but that's not a good look.
Then there's Carrie, who's like the event and operations manager. I don't have a picture of her, so you just have to look at Greg again. I had talked to her for the entire year leading up to my wedding, and she wasn't even at my wedding and did not even send us notice that she wasn't going to be there. But she was, and still is, my main point of contact.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. There is a very, very, very high turnover rate that can happen at wedding venues that have in-house catering or wedding venue managers. There's a high turnover rate of staff with that. And then with catering managers or catering heads or catering captains, there can be a high turnover there as well. My guess is it's a mix between being a high pressure and or a high stress field and not getting paid enough. And honestly, like I'm this is all speculation, but I have had multiple clients go through multiple event captains, multiple event managers with professional catering services and or venues. So that's where I thought the statement was going. Like, but she is still her point of contact. So the fact that she wasn't there, again, it's not guaranteed that the person that you're speaking with maybe the whole time is going to be the person at your event unless they've explicitly stated that. So I would not be shocked when working with a professional catering company to not have that person there, like their one point of contact there. I'd be concerned, especially if nobody else was CC'd. I'd be like, wait a minute, I just want to make sure we're communicating properly. Okay. Anyways.
Then there's Leah, another staff member of Catering Made Simple, who was sent in Carrie's place last minute because Carrie wasn't even at my wedding. She kind of looks like this.
I wonder if Carrie was at another event that was higher paying. These are personal speculations, okay? But this is the vibe that I'm getting. If this was your sole point of contact and they're not there, they're at another event, my guess is that one's more expensive and or has more moving parts.
And this was my wedding coordinator, Amber. Love Amber. Kept me sane. They disrespected my girl, Amber, so bad and kept going over her head to get to me so many times that she wound up ending up in tears by the end of the night.
Oh, that's tacky. That's tacky. The bride hired a coordinator to be her liaison to speak on her behalf and to run the wedding day. And the catering team's like, no, sweet girl, we're not dealing with you. We're going to go straight to the couple instead. That's very inappropriate.
Let's start with before the ceremony even started. That is where everything started to spiral. Before I even walked down the aisle, we planned our ceremony between 2 periods of rain. Timing was everything.
Oh, that's so sketchy. It's like when someone wants to start their processional at like an exact moment, a very specific moment of a song. Like anytime we get hyper specific with like weather and music and timing is so precious, but it can also be really difficult, especially when you're in between 2 periods of rain. And then if you're here in Texas, it might show no forecast of rain at all whatsoever and be absolutely dumping outside. So, whole weather.
As we were about to get lined up to start, the coordinator was suddenly pulled aside by the catering staff and they were arguing with her because they thought that our dinner was buffet style. It's not. Every single document from the invoice, the contract, the emails said plated service. I even had them in a color-coded seating chart with every meal, allergy, and restriction weeks before sent to Catering Made Simple. Carrie, the operations manager, had confirmed she received it. Here are all of the meal
Okay, before we get into receipts, what? Why are they pulling the coordinator before the ceremony starts? Let her kick off the ceremony and then talk to her. Like, I don't stand there watching the ceremony the whole time. Some planners do. I do not. There's too many things for me to be doing. That's when I'll go check in with catering, okay? But leave me alone for 4.5 minutes to get this wedding ceremony kicked off, and then we'll have this discussion afterwards. But the fact that they were at the point where they're like arguing with this coordinator before the ceremony even starts, and no one goes, hey, cut it. Let's put a pin in this. Let's discuss this after the ceremony starts. Let's just get them down the aisle and then we can address this. So if I was the planner in this situation, that's how I would handle it. I would have looked at the event coordinator through the catering staff and said, hey, let's get this resolved in just a minute. Let me kick off the ceremony, get the bride down the aisle and get that going. And then you and I will come back and discuss this. And ideally, my client has CC'd me or forwarded documents to me so I could be fully prepared for an event like this. And then I can come to them with the receipts so she doesn't have to. That's an ideal situation. The fact that this is not going down, though, is not necessarily a negative reflection on that coordinator. I just would have handled things differently.
Here are all of the meal restrictions that we laid out for Catering Made Simple. The color-coded chart and the seating plan for every single guest that we had coming to our wedding. This email was multiple pages long, and Carrie, the operations manager, responded the same day and said that she got it and that it looked great. There was so much confusion that I, the bride, had to walk into the reception where they were getting dinner ready in my wedding dress minutes before my ceremony to deal with their mess.
First of all, you're a dream bride. You're a dream bride. I love you so much. You didn't have to walk in there. You should not have walked in there. Your coordinator should not let you walk in there. Again, this is not a reflection on the coordinator. The coordinator is trying to clean up somebody else's mess. This is just a reflection of someone who's been doing this maybe perhaps like a little bit longer. Again, we are not blaming coordinator, but the fact that this bride felt like she had to, like, she should not have. That was not necessary. This could have been handled ideally without her. However, we've already received a hint of the catering being rude to the coordinator. I get it. But this sounds like it was the first foray into this issue, so the bride shouldn't have needed to step in yet. The coordinator ideally should have documentation that would help her navigate this conversation. Anyways, this is the first video, and we're so long into this already.
Leah tells me, well, you didn't provide place cards, so we assumed that it was buffet. I told her, no, it's plated. It's in the invoice. We never once discussed buffet.
Wait. That is the worst excuse. That's the stupidest catering excuse of all time. Because you didn't provide escort cards, it negates every single piece of paperwork we have that says plated meal. And this is not a simple oopsie mix-up. When you have plated meals, you have servers carrying plates out to individual persons. You have meals planned out for people at every single seat, at every single table. There is an elaborate song and dance that goes into a plated meal versus a buffet. And the straw that breaks the camel's back on that situation, baby, is not the escort cards. That is the most ludicrous response for the caterer to provide. Well, because you didn't do that, it negates all of our paperwork for the last year. We actually let some people go home early from our catering staff because you didn't provide escort cards. Now, if you're wondering what do the escort cards signify in this situation, usually there's some sort of marker, like indication, a different color, an animal, a little symbol or something that indicates what that person ordered, which means their place card will go at their seat specifically, and it will tell the servers what they ordered as a means of confirming the paperwork that they already have behind the scenes. They will know each seat number. They will know each person. They will know where the persons with dietary restrictions are seated, and then we'll have that confirmed by the escort card. The escort card is a fail-safe, a backup to whatever paperwork they already have. So when you say, oh, because you didn't give us escort cards, the plated meal is out the window, that doesn't work here. You should already have paperwork that indicates where all of this goes, which the bride has already provided with their seats and what everyone's eating at every single spot. So this excuse, absolute malarkey.
She then claimed that I never sent her any meal restrictions, and we went back and forth for a minute before I started to pull them up on my phone while simultaneously asking her why did she not have this prepared and printed.
Again, not sending in meal restrictions doesn't change the entire chemical makeup of the catering service. The amount of staff you bring changes. How the chef will plate things changes, whether you bring chafing dishes or plates, and how you serve everything, all of these components behind the scenes completely change 100%. So I am not buying this. It's not because the bride didn't send escort cards. It's not because the bride didn't send in meal restrictions. Because again, obviously she sent in the restrictions. We saw that. And my guess is she had escort cards too, meticulously labeled and probably alphabetized.
Standing there in my gown, I pulled the email up on my phone and showed her proof, and only then did she say, oh, it looks like you did send it to us, but I don't have it. And then she proceeded to write down everything on a piece of paper while I read it off to her.
No.
Still late to my own ceremony. Here's what I sent for meal restrictions. Here was the layout of the venue that went over how many people were at each table and what the table number was. And on that same diagram, how many chicken and salmon were at each table and who ordered what. I'm like, where is Carrie at? She should have all of this.
Why are we handwriting this down? Just literally forward it to her or forward it to your coordinator. I'm so sorry. I'm getting really loud with this. Like, send it to somebody else. Forward it to the catering manager and then be like, I gotta go get married. You deal with this. But the fact that the catering manager is now handwriting this stuff down, No. You've already come up with two completely nonsensical BS excuses for why you're not prepared to serve the meal in this way. And now you're writing it by hand. And we have to start the ceremony. I'm sweating.
That's when I found out Carrie, the only person I had communicated with for over a year with Catering Made Simple, wasn't even at my wedding. She had been sent to another event without even telling me or my coordinator who she had information for. Instead, they threw somebody completely new into the wedding with zero context and clearly zero paperwork or references.
I'm not surprised by this, okay? I'm not surprised that we have a different catering manager day of. That doesn't shock me. The lack of paperwork I find astounding, that she's like handwriting this. I hope that she had it in her inbox. Well, why would I hope that? I don't know. Doesn't matter. If she had her inbox and didn't realize it was there or didn't have her inbox and was handwriting it down, she's not handling this well. Anyways, okay.
Because of their incompetence, our ceremony was delayed. And with the rain in the forecast that day, exactly when my ceremony time was supposed to be, we almost lost our outdoor ceremony.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like that argument's a little bit of like a straw man argument. That might not be the correct logical fallacy, but it's a little bit like, yeah, but you didn't have to go in there and it could have been handled without you, et cetera, et cetera. And they can't control the weather. So like, yes, we are frustrated with them that it started late. And yes, there are external factors that make it extra frustrating, but the weather, I feel like, is not necessarily relevant to this part of the argument. And you might disagree with me, and that's fine.
And as bad as this was, it was only the beginning. And the way that they handled our cake, the destruction, the disrespect, and the comment that they made about our cake topper, something I will never forget. Stay tuned for part 2.
Part 2, here we go.
You would think the worst part of what the caterer did was just delaying my ceremony, but nope. What Catering Made Simple did to our cake still makes me angry. We paid Catering Made Simple for full cake service. It included setting it up on a highboy bistro table in front of our sweetheart table, cutting utensils, plates, serving the wedding party, the bottom tier, wrapping the top tier, all of it. All of this was also even gone over on our final phone call about a month before our wedding. This is how our cake was promised to be displayed per a July conversation. Pause to read.
Here's an example of the display set. Bride says, okay, great. I really like those stands. They look great for the desserts. Cake cutting is set perfect too. Let's definitely add all that, please. This is an additional service. This is an additional fee, cake cutting fee, cutting it, plating it, passing it out, etc. You can see that there's a cake knife, a cake server, 2 forks, a napkin, and a plate. This is really important. This is something that sometimes will get neglected if you're not working with a catering service, because when you go to cut the cake, you're not prepared. Like, you don't have a knife, you don't have a plate, you don't have a napkin, etc. If you have a coordinator, oftentimes they will handle this for you or pay attention to it for you to at least make sure that it's ready to go. But if not, then this could be one of those situations where you go to cut your cake and you realize no one's thought of this. So write that down, okay? So if you don't have a professional caterer or a coordinator, write down, just make sure someone puts a plate with 2 forks, ideally a napkin, and then you need something to cut the cake with. If you want to go fancy with some sort of like heirloom cake server and cake knife, go for it. If you want to borrow one, fine. Have we used a disposable knife for this before? Yeah, we sure have. Sure have. Did it really matter? No, not so much. But this is something that falls through the crack with great frequency. So the fact that they're highlighting this and handling this is great. This
was our final invoice that showed that our top tier should have been wrapped and saved prior to serving the cake. This questionnaire was filled out by Carrie at Catering Made Simple and then sent to the venue. And right here, it says that we needed an 8-foot and a highboy table for the cake. It also touches on how the caterer was supposed to provide a cake knife. This was the set that they were supposed to provide. They did not. They didn't even set it up on a bistro table. We were told that it was time to cut our cake. We scrambled around trying to find out where the cake had been set because it was not set in front of our sweetheart table like we had asked.
This is one of those, like, if it falls through the cracks, it falls through the cracks, okay? Well, but the fact that they're super specific about this, I have less grace for them. The fact that they already have screwed up on multiple occasions, yes, we're going to count this against their record, okay? That's what we're doing. That's your fault. She paid extra for this. For specific rentals, specific table, specific spot. She paid to rent an extra table and a tablecloth and the cake knife and server and to have it directly in front of their sweetheart table, which makes for a beautiful photo opportunity and everybody can see it really well because it's right there and centrally located. So when they go to cut the cake and it's not where they intended, that sucks.
We finally found the cake pushed to the back of our dessert table, and when it was actually time for us to cut it, there were no utensils, no plates, and no setup. This was our cake, shoved to the back of our dessert table. Here's our cake again, shoved to the back of the dessert table. I needed to really reach my arms to be able to get to that cake.
Okay, dude, this is very common. This is very common. When you set up a dessert table, you want the cake to be centrally located. Again, they should have had it on a separate table. They did not. They are already not following instructions, okay? But we're not shocked by this because the gal there didn't even have the instructions to follow, okay? But this is the fallback option. This is where a cake will often frequently go, middle back of a dessert table, and couples will be like, I don't know how to cut this. Here's what I usually do in a situation like this. I, along with a photographer or my assistant or whatever, I will check with the photographer to say, hey, how do you want to take this shot? What do you want to do? Because it's pushed up against the wall. My assistant and I will usually carefully pull the table away from the wall, either fully away both sides or at an angle to allow the couple to go behind it or the photographer to go behind it. I will let the photographer determine what they would like to do in this situation. Because yeah, what are we supposed to do? I don't want a bride, overextending herself like that to try to cut this cake. It looks awkward. It's clunky. It doesn't make for great photos, but it does make for a really good opportunity to double check that you put on deodorant that day. It's just not necessarily the time that you want to be doing that. Because again, a lot of couples aren't working with a professional catering service. So they're just going to have it preset by a baker beforehand, and then the baker is going to leave, and then they have to kind of figure it out from there. So if you're in a situation like this, while moving the cake is an option, I don't recommend. Instead, try to shuffle the table forward. Either have the photographer go behind or have the couple go behind if you can get enough clearance behind it. That way, everyone can kind of still see what's going on if you want them to, unless you're having more quiet cake cutting. Anyways, moving on.
Now, you might be noticing that there's something weird about that cake. Like, what is that board in the middle of the cake? Oh, I'll tell you. It was our cake topper. That was supposed to look like this. This cake was made by a very close friend of mine and my husband's, and it was meant to be a special part of our day. I provided a custom-made wooden topper to our caterer inside a protective frame with written instructions. It said, gently pop the topper out of the frame before placing it on the cake. Instead, they shoved the entire frame straight into the cake. It split the top tier, completely destroyed the design, and left our cake looking nothing like what we had envisioned. And then one of the staff members said, oh, we're not used to working with those kinds of cheap toppers. Custom made, not cheap, and now ruined.
The second I saw that, I was like, no, they didn't take it out of the casing, because these cake toppers have been around for like, I think basically my entire career. When I got started 10 years ago, it was like a Mr. and Mrs. that you popped out, but they kept it in the frame to like keep it safe because they break very, very easily. And now custom ones are a lot more feasible and a lot more popular. And you know, this is not unheard of. This is not a brand new experience. So the fact that this caterer is like, yeah, we're just not used to working with cake toppers like this. Since when? Since when? Like, when did that happen? I don't understand. They've been around for a decade. Like, you don't have an excuse here. The comment about it being a cheap topper, though. Okay, come in close for this one, okay? They are cheap. Not inexpensive. They are cheaply made. They're so thin and so dainty, and the scripting is, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's so cute, and I love it for you. But even the bride knew that it was extremely fragile. They're not well made. It's pressed pieces of wood that can easily snap. So was that comment necessary? Absolutely not. I am not condoning the catering staff speaking like this. Do I understand where the catering staff is coming from? Sure do. There's a reason the bride kept it protected, because it's very thin, and they're not well made. They're not cheap cost-wise, but they're cheap product-wise. You feel? Anyone with a CNC machine can cut something out like this, slap some paint on it, and charge you an exorbitant amount of money to do this. So the fact that the caterer has no experience working with this, I call bull hockey on that one. When they called it cheap, I personally wouldn't have said that with my mouth, okay? But I can understand where they're coming from, because they're not well made.
Let's remember that the top tier was supposed to be saved prior to serving, and this is how the cake was presented. This was the top tier. When I saw that cake, my heart sank. I looked over to my coordinator and I called her. I was like, oh my God. She came running, I pointed it out, and she was furious. We went to the back where catering staff was cleaning up, tried to get an answer for why somebody would do this, and even my coordinator could not get a straight answer from staff as to why that happened. Our wedding photographer had to step in and fix our cake topper to even salvage a single good photo of it. Damage was already done by that point. The top tier was ruined and split. Our photos did not come out the way that we envisioned, needing to reach over the entire table to even get to our cake. Literally having our backs turned to our guests. Our guests were all seated behind us, to where we literally had to make a conscious effort to turn around to try to get a good cake photo. There's the cake though.
See what I mean about moving the table? Because had they moved it forward a little bit, the couple would have been able to shimmy behind it. It would not have made for a beautiful backdrop. Do not get me wrong. And it is risky moving a cake table like this. I'm not saying that this is a foolproof method. But if you want the people attending your wedding to see you cutting the cake, then you have to position your body in such a way to let them see you cut the cake. Like, so scoot the table, etc., etc.
The cake had just been taken out of the freezer before it was served and put out. When we were trying to cut the cake, it was so cold. The utensils that weren't the utensils that we rented legitimately bent. We weren't even able to cut a piece of our own cake. So we grabbed some of the sheet cake that was right here, and that's what we used for our photos, because everybody was waiting, everybody was watching, and the cake cutting song had looped 3 times.
No! At this point, the DJ's like, and we're playing it again. Honestly, the DJ probably should have picked a different song, okay? Because at that point, like, don't repeat it. Don't repeat it. Okay, we missed your moment. Okay, just pick Sugar by the Archies or Bieber. Like, I don't care. Like, just pick something else to shuffle on into to keep the momentum going. Because if you keep looping it, that's bad. But the fact that this said, oh, okay. Who put this dang cake in the freezer? Like, I get that a cake needs to be kept cold for an extended period of time. Okay? Get that. Understand that. My cousin's a baker. This is what she does for a living. She does wedding dessert tables for a living. I know the temperature is really important for the frosting and the overall structure of the cake. The fact that it went into the freezer never should have happened when it got to the venue, okay? If it needed to be kept cold, it should have been put into a fridge. What could have happened, possibly, is that the baker friend might have misconstrued, those big commercial fridge freezers. You might not, because you might not have been in a catering kitchen at a venue before. The fridges and freezers oftentimes can look quite similar, and you might not know the difference, especially if they have nothing stored in them, and they're just big, they're utilitarian, they are identical inside, and they're really hard to tell the difference other than the temperature. And you might just be like, oh, that's a really cold fridge. They might not have been thinking about it. A lot of bakers also will actually keep the cake in a fridge or freezer overnight to make sure it stays cold. So by the time it gets to your wedding, it will be safe at room temperature for an extended period of time until it gets out to your dessert table, until it gets out to the display, especially if it's going to be outside. If it's going to be outside, we need to make sure it stays as cool as possible for as long as possible. So, and that and the bugs. The fact that it was in the freezer for this long is a huge no-no. Seeing as the caterer has not shown a history of attention to detail, it's not a good look for them, but perhaps they just didn't even think to look in the freezer. Maybe they're just running around checking the fridges because they know what the fridge side is, or they know the temperature that the fridge is supposed to be at, and they weren't checking the freezer at all. Should this have been resolved earlier? Yes, they should have checked all the fridges and freezers, pulled it out earlier, let the coordinator know what the situation was, so the coordinator can then go warn the clients to say, hey, somehow this got stuck in the freezer. We're not sure. Maybe the delivery person put it in there. We don't think it's going to be defrosted in time for your event. So while we do have it out on the counter in the kitchen area to try to get to temp as quickly as possible, we do suggest that you cut a piece of the sheet cake instead. In fact, if this were me and my client, I would have pulled the table out and placed a little piece of the sheet cake back there for them to cut. So it still looks like they're cutting their actual cake, right? So they still get the photo, they still get the vibe, they still get the moment. But then they could have been able to cut a cake that was at room temp. But because the caterer has screwed up so much already, I see how this could be a reflection on them specifically. But they didn't bake the cake. They didn't deliver the cake. They might have put the cake in the freezer because their report card's not looking good so far. But my guess is someone else put it in the freezer and they just didn't look for it. Or they might have assumed that the cake had been a little bit warm, a little too high in temperature, and someone placed it in the freezer intentionally. It's not necessarily the caterer's fault that it was in the freezer. Everything else, though, that's on them.
Granted, our photographer did a phenomenal job and our photos came out beautiful, but that was not what I expected at all.
Wait. This is why. What if this is why they kept the board on it? Because it was so frozen that they couldn't get the stick to go into the... Wait, did I just crack the code? They couldn't get the stick to go into the top of it. I wonder if it just kept falling over. I'm totally giving them the benefit of the doubt. And even that, this is not great. It's not great. But they needed more support. And then they're shoving it into this thing. Of course the cake's going to break away because it's frozen and you're shoving an entire wooden board into it. I don't like this. I don't like this caterer. Again, some of this may not be their fault, but it's not looking good.
The bottom tier of that wedding cake was supposed to be served to me, my husband, and my wedding party. Instead, I found out that my wedding party was served sheet cake. Everything we had planned and everything we had paid for was ignored. This wasn't just a mistake. It was carelessness, disrespect, and total disregard for the time, money, and love that we had poured into this entire wedding.
I don't think that any of this was intentional disrespect, especially if it wasn't their fault that was in the freezer. Let me know what you think, though. How much should we blame the caterer for this specifically if they're not the ones that put it in the freezer?
And if that wasn't bad enough, the way that they treated my guests, my coordinator, and even me personally was next level unprofessional. Catering Made Simple staff was incredibly dismissive, aggressive, disrespectful, and unprofessional. Throughout dinner, catering staff kept walking around asking over and over if people were done eating, aggressively hovering over tables. It got so bad that some guests just handed over their plates early because they were just tired of being asked. One of our wedding guests commented this under our review of Catering Made Simple. Pause to read.
No. That's so... I hate that so much. I hate it so much. Okay, you don't bus tables while people are still eating. You don't touch the plates until people are on the dance floor. And even then, you only touch the dinner plates. You don't touch the dessert plates, okay? Because you want to give people plenty. Let's read this review. I didn't want to say anything that night because it was your wedding, but it makes sense now. I noticed around 11 p.m. the catering ladies, okay, 11 p.m., that's pretty late. That's pretty late. Going around and clearing each table while people were on the dance floor. They were throwing away everything without asking guests first. They gathered up and threw in the garbage all the souvenir glow sticks. Oh. I had to keep ours in my hand. I stood up to say goodbye to a few people leaving, and she must have reached right behind my back and took my drink. Darlene set a full drink on the table and stepped away for a moment, and they snatched her drink. I told Darlene these ladies are being very rude. There was still another hour of party left. Oh, okay, that's what's going to be my next question. And they were clearing the tables like they wanted to go home. Very rude. Don't touch it. They were clearing the tables like they wanted to go home. Empty glasses? Perfectly fine. Empty plates? Absolutely. Like, get on that hustle, sis. Proud of you. If we still have an hour left, I get it. And I get they're going to want to start scraping and rinsing plates. They have a whole process that they need to do to tear down for the evening. So I understand wanting to get a jump start on it. And an hour before the event ends at 11 p.m., it's not a jump start at that point. It's just, doing their job within the time frame that they typically do their job. Full drinks, though? No. Absolutely not. Souvenir take-home glow sticks? Also, no. Also no for that one. Walking around asking people if they're finished eating, if there's still food on their plates, big, fat, absolute no. Now, there is absolutely a way to clear tables earlier in the evening without making guests feel like they're a nuisance or like you're asking them to leave. 1, make sure no one's at that table. 2, make sure whatever you're bussing or clearing is completely empty. All gone. Nothing left. 3, double check that it's not a buffet. Because if it was, they might want their plate to go back for seconds, and they're fully allowed to do that, okay? And 4, do it slowly. Do it leisurely. Don't scoop everything up and run around. Walk slowly, move slowly, gather a few things, take it back to the kitchen. Don't worry, it's a great way to get your steps in and also make sure the guests don't feel like you're rushing them out the door.
But it wasn't even just guests. I cleared my own plate, the bride's plate, while I was in the bathroom. I was only in there for like 10 minutes. I had literally only eaten half my meal at that point. I walked back and I saw my food was gone. I went into the kitchen and I said, hey, you guys took my plate and I wasn't done and I'm still hungry and also you took my water. Didn't offer to fix anything. Our staff lead then walked me across the entire reception to the bar to get a glass of water. And
Nope.
I could have done that myself.
That's so petty, it's stupid. That's so petty, it's stupid. You took the bride's plate. And also, remember, the owner's watching this entire thing. The owner was presumably might have even been in the kitchen when the bride, the one in the gown, walks back into the kitchen and goes, hey, you took my food. You took my food. I wasn't done eating. I went to the bathroom. This thing is a monstrosity and I had to figure out going to the bathroom in it. And I came back and my food is gone. Top level catering staff doesn't even touch the couple's table for an extended period of time because they know they're going to get called away. They know if a bride's going to go to the bathroom, she might get caught in 7 different conversations on her way back to the dinner table to keep eating. Like, that's a big no-no. That's a big, absolutely not okay no-no. And then the bride goes, hey, you took my food and my water when I went to the bathroom. And then the catering staff person goes, okay, well, here, let me walk you over to it, and walks her to the bar to get her water. That's just, I hate it. I don't like you.
I had not eaten all day. I was still very hungry. The way that they treated my coordinator, Amber, incredibly unacceptable. Amber is an absolute professional and I will recommend her forever. She's calm, she's detail-oriented, and respected in the industry. But Catering Made Simple's staff ignored her time and time again, waved their hands at her when she tried to ask questions, and dismissed her completely every single time. Literally ended up in tears on my wedding day because they refused to listen or work with her. They kept going over her head to get to me. Leah took it even further. Told Amber that she planned to pull me, the bride, aside during the reception to tell me how much she didn't approve of my choice of a coordinator. My mother and maid of honor had to physically step in and tell her absolutely not. Can you imagine a catering staff member threatening to confront the bride on her wedding day to complain about somebody they hired? Come on.
Ew.
Obviously, we know from part 3, they called my cake topper cheap. We all know that anything custom made in the wedding industry is not cheap. Completely out of line and unacceptable for them to even say that. The part that really still blows my mind is that the owner of Catering Made Simple, Greg, whose picture you saw in the first part, was there the entire time. He saw me ask about my food. He saw me walk into the kitchen, never once introduced himself, never once apologized, never once stepped in to make things right. He watched all of this happen from beginning to end. The disrespect, the ruined cake, the mistreatment of my coordinator. He chose to stay silent. the whole night. I did not even know that that dude was the owner because he never even introduced himself. It wasn't even until I saw a picture of him that I was like, oh my God, he was there. Not until it was confirmed that he was there by multiple guests. And Carrie herself during a conference phone call 2 days after the wedding. And just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, Greg decided to respond after the wedding. Not with an apology, not with accountability, but by trying to pressure me into deleting my review before he'd even talk to me.
As a business owner in the wedding industry, so much of what we do can be affected by how we present ourselves and how we communicate with people. So if I was a catering owner and I saw the one in white march into the kitchen and say, you took my food, I would immediately go, oh snap, like let's get the bride new food, and then tell the staff like, hey, don't do that again. Even if he was completely not paying attention to the rest of the event, that's a pretty big white flag walking in through the kitchen that deserves to be addressed. Annie Hoodles, this was a long one, okay? Let me know your thoughts, feelings, opinions in the comments down below. If you are planning a wedding, please come join me in the master plan. It is the most affordable professional planning services you will ever find. I walk you through everything you need to plan from point A to wedding day as seamlessly as possible. Go ahead and link it right up there and down in the description box below as well. If you haven't done so already, jump on down there, hit the like button if you like the video, and subscribe to this channel for more tips and tricks for the modern day bride. B, if you're seeing this, I'm so sorry. You did a great job organizing your event. Sounds like your coordinator was pretty darn awesome. And good luck figuring this one out because, if you're the catering company watching this, I encourage you to at least be nicer when things go awry. Okay? Because it's okay to make mistakes. It's how we deal with them afterwards that matters. And until next week, bye guys.